Hey guys, it's Zach with ZWR Woodshop, and today I'm going to be building a router sled. I did a lot of research and I found several that I like, but they were all in the $500 to $1,000 price range, and that was just too much. So I decided to price it out for parts and see how much I could make it, and it turned out that I could build a full 4x8 router sled for just about $300 with a very unique function, and that's going to be with this all thread, and that will allow me to route with the grain rather than against it as most router sleds do. So as you see me doing right now, I have a couple nuts on a cutoff piece of that all thread, and I'm just shaving them down with the belt sander, trying to make them fit in one of these clamps so that can hold the actual gantry. I cut out a couple templates on my laser just to make sure that I had all the sizing that I found online correct. And I'm glad I did that because one of the three that I found was incorrect. And so I had to remeasure the actual product that I got and make the new template from that. And once again, I lost the footage that was all in the horizontal format. So you're gonna have to bear with me for a couple more minutes before it gets back to the horizontal. I'm not very good at this apparently, but maybe one day I'll get a good video. I just finished unboxing everything that I got from Amazon and wherever else I bought everything, just to kind of get everything laid out. And now I cut out the templates that I'm going to use to cut the acrylic sheet. I was hoping to be able to do this on my laser, but it just didn't work out. The acrylic that I'm using is about 1/2 inch thick, and my laser can cut up to about 3/8. So I was just short by about 1/8 of an inch. I decided that I wanted to inset the bolts into the plastic, and I really wish that I had just gone with like a flathead style bolt that was longer, as it ended up being a big pain to go and drill out half the thickness of the plastic on each of those bolts. Plus it ended up actually cracking in a couple spots. As of right now, it's still working. In the long run, I wish that I just bought the longer bolts, and another thing that I really wish I'd done is just use wood. The plastic looks really nice, but going and drilling out for all of those bolts and then tightening them up, I think I either tightened them up too much or the plastic just wasn't really made for that. Right now I am just test fitting everything together out of some 1/4 inch plywood that I cut out on the laser to make sure that everything was going to fit. And once again, I'm glad I did this because I didn't have measurements for that dust port, and so I just kind of guessed. But I was able to tighten everything up a little bit more so that I was taking up a little bit less plastic, and I would have more room to actually flatten material. And once I did that and made the changes to the template and cut it out again, I was able to start cutting out the plastic, getting everything down to size. And then I would bring it over and I'd start drilling everything by hand. And a lot of people use a drill press for this, but honestly, I don't really think it's that necessary. It's not like you have to get it within 1/1000th of an inch or at a perfect 90. Yes, those things are nice, so if you have a drill press, I'd say use it, but I don't have one, and it wasn't worth going out and buying one just for this project. Eventually down the line, I'll get one, but at this point, I don't really have a need for it. But using these templates, I was able to get everything perfectly lined up and close enough to 90 that it all went together really smooth. The biggest issue I had was actually cutting out these two holes for the dust collection and the router bit. And that was mostly because the hole saw kit that I have is a really cheap one, and so it actually ended up melting the plastic more than anything. And one time the bit actually got stuck while I was cutting it, and then the plastic re-solidified, so I had to pull out my heat gun and remelt it with that just to be able to pull it out. It was a big mess. So another reason that wood is just a lot easier to work with than plastic. Granted, if you look at that, it looks a lot better in plastic. We're right about at the halfway mark, and so I feel like right now is a pretty good time to just ask if you're liking this video, or if you've seen some of my other ones and you like them, then go ahead and hit the like button. Or If you really want, you could subscribe, share, comment. All of these things will help me grow, and hopefully one day I'll be able to make this my full-time gig. I started off tightening all of these bolts by hand, but after doing just a couple, I realized that I had about 50 or 60 more, and so I decided to actually grab a bit for my 12-volt DeWalt. That tool just isn't too strong, so I felt like it wouldn't over-tighten them, and then I could hand-tighten it after that. And that saved a lot of time, made it a lot easier. And at this point, I'm not really tightening them up too much yet. I'm just kind of getting them in there so that once I put the rods in, they still have a little bit of wiggle room and we'll be able to adjust if needed. And then I will come back in with some thread locker and put those in and snug them up a little bit more so that they won't ever back out unless I want them to be backed out. Going back to when I put all of the materials together, there were really two main choices. There were these crossbars that I'm currently working on, and there's also, they're called SBR rails, and that's what I decided to go with for the length. But the width, I decided to go with these other crossbars, mostly for the aesthetics. I didn't really like any of the videos or images I saw where they use both the SBR style for length and width, but I really like these other style. They also make it so you don't have to make any kind of weird like J-hook almost for this plastic sled piece to get it down closer to the material, because it hooks right to the bottom of these rails. And so that makes it a lot easier, and it's honestly right about the same price. It might even be cheaper, I can't remember for sure. But really, if I'm being honest, it was mostly the looks. Next step was to work on the dust shoe. This is something I really wanted because I have a little 2-foot by 2-foot plywood version that I didn't put a dust shoe on, and it just creates a massive mess that it takes forever to clean up. And so putting on this dust shoe will help really keep that dust to a minimum. Hopefully it'll suck up most of it, but it won't be shooting across the whole shop. So I started off by just super gluing it onto the edges, but I figured that might not hold very well, so I pre-drilled and then used some self-tapping sheet metal screws, and that worked perfect, honestly. I couldn't have been happier with it. Then I slid the crossbars through and started attaching the all-thread. And honestly, at this point, I wasn't really sure if I was going to use the all-thread just to help keep it in a straight line so the router wouldn't suck it further into the table and cause some really bad chatter marks. Once I got the handle and everything else connected, I realized that I only had about 2¼ inches from the bottom of the router plate to the top of my table. So I decided to throw in 2 pieces of 1/2-inch MDF under each of the rails. And this is something that I really found while doing my research, is that almost everybody that I saw building one of these put these little risers underneath. So I already kind of knew that I was going to need to do this, but I figured I'd wait till the end so that I knew exactly how much height I had and how much more I want. And I'd rather put the risers too high and have to build my project up to the router than have to eventually figure out another way to raise this up. So I probably should have done it a little bit thicker, but it will work for most things that I'm going to be doing. And once I got that done, it was onto the maiden voyage of the router. And this is a little epoxy project I tried a little while back and didn't work out. I think I got the volume wrong when mixing it, so it was my fault. Kind of stinks, but this made short work of cleaning it up. I think it took 14 minutes for approximately 2-foot by 3-foot little coffee tabletop, and I was taking off anywhere from a 1/16 to 1/4 of an inch. And seriously, it is so smooth. It'll take almost no time at all to go through and sand it flat. And that's one of the main reasons that I designed mine to go with the grain rather than against the grain. Anyways, if you liked the video and feel like it helped you to decide how to build your own router sled, then please subscribe and stay tuned for some more amazing builds.